about Christian Walker and how we're making up drama.
Yeah. In fact, we're not even going to do an opening credits segment because I forgot to hit start on one.
Cold open.
Welcome everybody to Off Day with Ballpark Nation. I am your host, Jim Christopher, along with my other host, Andy Tom Chesson. Now, Andy, I'm doing a little double entendre today with my wardrobe. I'm wearing the Team USA hockey jersey. This is actually from the Nations Classic they did last year where we lost the gold medal to Canada. But I'm also wearing it because not only is it the Winter Olympics, but it's Friday the 13th. Ipso facto, people think of Jason.
I mean, the whole Voorhees clan is thought of.
The whole Voorhees clan is thought of. There's actually a real estate agent that used to be working in the South Austin area whose last name was Voorhees, and I told Jessica, that's the last person I'm buying a house from.
On the other hand, I celebrate his entire catalog.
I do. Where do you sit? Because I am not. I think the Friday the 13th movies are fine. One of the things that I don't, and this is very me when I finish my expectation about my explanation about why I have issues with them. I think they're fine. What I don't like is that people will call them sort of cutting edge, the birth of the slasher, and somehow more important than Halloween. When if you actually watch like the making of Friday the 13th, they tell over and over again, we were trying to rip off Halloween as quickly and cheaply as possible. And so for me, like all of a sudden, I can't even judge the movie on its merit so much as I'm now just mad that they're trying to lump themselves up into with one of the greatest horror films of all time.
I mean, I don't even think from a franchise perspective that it compares favorably with the Nightmare on Elm Street series.
Totally.
But that's where popular culture has pushed it into that echelon. It's a conversation of Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, a couple of others. And if you look at the films independently, outside of just the pop culture aspect of it, the Friday the 13th films aren't great.
No.
They're poorly made. They're not well written. And, to your point, it makes sense that they would say after the fact, look, we were just trying to get something out to market to sell tickets and take advantage of the thing that Halloween just started.
Yeah. The thing that what makes it interesting is actually you hit the nail on the head is that it became more pop culture icon than it did good movie. And if you go back to like the history, like they never intended to bring Michael Myers back after a first or second film. They were going to do, that's how you get Season of the Witch. It wasn't until the producers were like in that gap going, look how much money Jason is making and Freddy is making and Pinhead and all the others. I mean, there are a couple like the ones with Corey Feldman are pretty good, I guess. They're fine. But it is that day.
I mean, they beat a poke in the eye with a sharp stick, but it's if you were actually doing
it's not going to be the tagline of the show. You know what? It might not be good, but it's better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick.
I am full of advertising quips and qualms. I'm a marketing genius. It's kind of bad French fries. I'll use In-N-Out Burger as an example. In-N-Out has a perfectly fine burger. I'm not getting into the whole Whataburger versus In-N-Out Burger thing.
Right.
But you get fries with your burger at In-N-Out, but nobody likes the fries at In-N-Out because they're not good.
No.
But you still eat them.
Because they're fries.
Friday the 13th is the In-N-Out fries of the horror genre. I also get really irritated with Friday the 13th because they seem to get a pass on something that bugs me about the criticism of comic book movies, that there are no stakes.
Yeah.
There's no stakes. Tony Stark's going to be back in Avengers Doomsday somehow. We're going to make that happen. So his death is meaningless. How many times did Jason die?
I mean, I think there's like
every film at least 1.5 times.
I think there's even like 2 movies that sort of indicate it was the last movie, and then there's one after that. Like I don't understand. I guess he's a demon. No, he's not even a demon. It's just lazy writing. So when we first started Twitchy Dolphin and we started this festival thing, we ended up hanging out with this guy who called himself First Jason. And his name is Ari Lehman. And he is, technically speaking, I guess, First Jason because he played the little boy at the end of the first movie. Now, that's his name. He definitely played a character named Jason, but
Sure.
he didn't play Jason. Well, this guy built an entire career. He started a band and he plays a guitar with the machete. Well, I remember one time we were all hanging out because Twitchy Dolphin, my production company, always immediately became William Chandler says, "Hey, all." Always immediately became the after party for whatever festival we were at. And I remember getting really, really drunk at about 3 a.m. and telling him that to his face, and that Halloween was the vastly superior film. And then he got up and left. So I pissed off Jason. So I guess it's probably bad luck on Friday the 13th.
I mean, by that random logic, why isn't Jason Bateman in a movie? Jason Momoa, Jason Sudeikis. I mean, just anybody named Jason gets to be Jason. I don't think that works either.
Exactly. He just happened to be an ugly mongoloid baby, and that kind of got him the role.
Jason Statham, scarier than Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, and they speak at about the same level, so that helps. But I'm also wearing the hockey jersey too because the hockey, USA Hockey is dominating. Both the women are 4-0.
You almost take the women's ice hockey team, the U.S. national team, for granted because they're so good and they've been so good for so long. I know Canada's up there, and there's a couple of others that should give them a better match than others, but they are what USA basketball used to be back in the day when it was all amateurs. Anytime they lost anything was an upset. Anytime
they are what USA women's soccer was up until recently.
Yeah. No, that's another fair comparison. But anytime they're expected to win, and so I think we take them for granted a little bit, where the men get more credit because ostensibly Canada's got a better national team. There are European countries that have better national teams than what we put on the ice for USA Hockey. However, seems maybe the tide's turning a little bit this year. So,
yeah. Both teams, I think, are undefeated. I think the men have only played once though, but they did dominate. Now they dominated Lithuania, which is how hard it is to beat Lithuania, but still can't argue it. Before we get headlong into sports, though, now tomorrow's Valentine's Day. Now Jess and I have never been big celebrators of Valentine's Day. I did have flowers delivered to her today. I thought about getting black ones since it's Friday the 13th, just to kind of have some fun with her. But what about you? Like, are y'all going to do dinner? I mean, do you acknowledge it? Is it a high five in the hallway? What is your Valentine's Day?
We are going to see Hades Town, which I don't know if it's an appropriate topic for Valentine's Day, but it ostensibly is a date, and it is, theater, so women like that. No, I enjoy musical theater. So
as we know on the show, you're a musical theater aficionado.
No, we're going to the Hobby Center in Houston to see Hades Town. I think we will try to grab dinner before, but it will be something that does not require a reservation and is not going to have a prefix menu.
Yeah.
I guess Mighty Burger could have a prefix menu.
Talk about decent. Now, those are decent fries at Mighty Burger.
Yes. Mighty Burger has a superior fry.
They do have a superior fry. Yeah. I don't know what we're doing. I think, Jessica and I are probably going to catch up on some movies. I do want to run down some movies we did finally catch up on because, as you know, we did not get to do our New York trip of musical theater. So we watched a bunch of movies that we hadn't seen, but I wanted to jump right into some baseball stuff. I do want to talk a little about the Christian Walker thing. And I have a take about why I think Brady should be the one that's traded that I'm curious as to what you'll agree with. But the headline from Jeff Passan on ESPN right now is
are his shoes dry yet?
His shoes are they are definitely dry. I just still feel bad about that. For those of you who are watching, I did jokingly consider urinating on his shoes at a urinal at the winter meetings, and then I ended up putting it on Twitter, and then he ended up finding it and messaging me, and then I felt bad. But no, he basically is. I mean, it's the same thing we've been discussing. Kyle Tucker's Dodger contract might have been the final blow for labor peace. What's interesting, Andy, getting your take on it, because I think also you have a head for business that I really don't have, but it seems like this contract actually pissed off the other owners and now has set us down a road to piss off the players. It might have actually almost fills you what your theory has been this whole time, that the owners want the Dodgers to be the monkey in the wrench and kind of blow this thing up a little bit.
Yeah, I think I don't know that the owners are upset about it outside of ostensibly we want to be able to compete and they're being unfair and blah, blah, blah. By the way, you can always do varsity lettering, and I'm going to be a sucker for your branding.
I love this
varsity font. It's a great cup. I know Starbucks is a big New World Order thing, but that's a good looking cup.
It's a good looking. I didn't even notice until I saw yours. That's a good looking cup. I actually would get this in the actual permanent mug if they sold it.
I was also established in 1971, so I enjoy that part of it.
Oh, look at that.
No, I seriously do believe that the Dodgers have been allowed to stretch the boundaries of the rules as far as the salary cap go, deferred compensation, all those things, because Major League Baseball needed somebody to be the bad guy on this thing. Believe me, if they would have let the Astros be the bad guy on something else, they would have, but Jim Crane's not going to defer that kind of money. The Dodgers are in a situation, we've discussed it a number of times, where the ownership group has no interest in selling anytime soon. They're able to carry debt for years and years and years. I mean, the future value of contracts for that team, I think 10 years from now, is like triple what they're paying for payroll now.
Yes.
And it's not going to count against any kind of luxury tax number or anything like that.
And it's double the next highest team.
Yes. And I think Manfred and his brain trust needed somebody to go in and break the system, to find the boundaries, to find the gray areas, to demonstrate to the public why a cap is needed. It's not fair for the Minnesota Twins to have to compete with the big, mean Los Angeles Dodgers. Never mind.
Out there and you're eye rolling at this, if you don't think Major League Baseball owners are capable of this Machiavellian behavior, you've not been paying attention to the history of the game. It's actually more the norm that they behave this way than it is the exception.
I mean, this is the only sport that's been sued for collusion and lost. Yeah, multiple times. So I think we have been predicting doom and gloom on this labor stoppage that is all but happening in December. I mean, it's everything but it actually happened. When lockout is available to happen, it'll happen. But I think that they have finally found a thing that everybody can rally around on their side. And unfortunately, that's going to put the players and their agents in a losing proposition, because public sentiment is very much outside of the Los Angeles area, very much against the idea of this team spending twice as much as the next best team. And the next best payroll is the Mets or the Yankees. So these aren't small market teams.
Exactly. And I think I saw the future value is the Dodger future value is $2.1 billion. And then the next one is the Yankees at 1.1. And then there's a lump of which the Astros are up in that top area. There is a lump of 6 or 7 teams all spending about the same amount. And then you get down to the mid-market and then the 30 feet of crap and then the A's. So it's funny because I was last night we were recording a lot of our Ballpark Nation smaller stuff because we got a different approach for the show this year, and I was with my lovely and talented and massive Braves fan co-host Lisha Rivera, and we were just talking about
there's nothing about her that is massive. She's this big.
Well, massively talented. Did I not say talented?
Oh, you just said massive.
I said massive. Oh yeah. Boy, Lish.
She's only this big.
She's only this big. No,
they sell her at Halloween because she's fun size.
She's fun size. That ought to be her nickname. Oh, that's gonna happen. That's what we're calling her from now on. Alicia Fun Size Rivera. But we were talking about how just unfortunately, I told her get to the Braves as much as you can this year. And she's like, yeah, but I think the Braves are going to go to the World Series. And I was like, I just don't think so, because the Dodgers have cornered the market of all the talent. And by all accounts, they're not done. But it's interesting to me because I find myself with the same conflict of, on the one hand, I don't side with ownership. On the other hand, it isn't fair to not have a level playing field of all 30 teams in the league.
It would be what I'm torn on this because, again, I don't side with the billionaires on this side either. But every other major sport has managed to figure out how to create some parity in spending and have teams that can compete no matter what their television market is, except for Major League Baseball. And we've talked, I mean, this is one of the ongoing themes of whatever iteration this show has taken on over the years, is that Major League Baseball, unlike the NFL, unlike the NBA, unlike the National Hockey League, unlike even Major League Soccer, is this loose affiliation of 30 different independent businesses that happen to need each other to schedule games. And they operate that way. And so you have the giant disparity with the New York television market, the Los Angeles television market, some other markets that aren't just television money, but other sources of income that Kansas City, Minnesota, Houston, for some part of their history, just didn't have to draw on. And so there's always been a competitive imbalance because of the money the owners are willing to spend. It got a lot worse after free agency because there was a massive conspiracy amongst the owners to keep salaries down, and they did.
Yeah.
Free agency blew that out of the water, and now you've come out the other end of it where you have a set of teams that's spending a lot of money, a set of teams that is spending what they need to spend and putting competitive teams, and then probably 10 teams that have no hope of winning, no chance of winning, and their owners don't really care about winning. They care about collecting whatever TV revenue they're going to get from, I guess, Major League Baseball streaming service, which now has 21 of the teams.
Yeah. And that's maybe part of the first step forward is for Major League Baseball just to control all of the regional networks, because then I think you can make revenue sharing a lot more, a lot easier, I guess. I don't know. You might know better than me, but obviously you can't make an apples to apples comparison between the NFL and the Major League Baseball. You have 18 games in the NFL season, all of which essentially are nationally televised. But I don't know how it works in basketball and hockey, where those are also largely reliant on regional networks. And I assume they have it seems to me like that has a much more even competitive balance. I mean, I was talking to Scott McIntyre at the festival. He came to ARF, and we were talking a little bit about hockey, and it does seem it's a little bit more level playing field at that sport.
Yeah, it's the reason baseball doesn't have a level playing field is because baseball doesn't want to have a level playing field. They never have. The salary cap is the public effort towards making it look that way. But until they get a national television contract that they equally share revenue from, until they pool all of their TV money and redistribute it, and not just the parts that they are willing to share, until they put a salary floor in, it's all just tilting at windows to put the billionaires at a more advantageous position than the millionaires. There's also this idea of what players are you actually benefiting, because in the world that there is a salary cap in other sports, you have fewer high-paid players and a lot more of what I would consider a middle class.
Sure.
Right now, Major League Baseball doesn't have much of that middle class. You've got really high-paid players and young players who are not reached free agency, and then kind of a little bitty wasteland in the middle. So there are things that need to be fixed. I don't like the way it's going to get fixed or the method by which it's going to get fixed, but it's coming. So,
well, and part of the issue is that neither side seems really interested in fixing the problem, because the very rich players are going to convince the lower class players that sticking with them is the way to go. It's an age-old story. The rich have always told the poor, if you follow us, it'll trickle down to you, we promise. But to your point, more and more teams are going to sign super duper high-priced players and then fill the rest of their team with essentially AAA players that they're only having to pay $400,000 a year to play, or whatever the league minimum is right now. Okay, so I want to talk a little Christian Walker. Now, I had said I do believe this is going to become a clubhouse problem if one of those guys isn't moved. I do think now I'm probably, and maybe it's just me rationalizing, I'm more okay with the idea of moving Paredes than Walker, if Altuve is going to have to play second base, and it's beginning to feel more and more likely like he's going to. I don't want to also defensive limited first baseman on the other side of the infield. First of all, how much do you think that actually matters? Does having a plus defender like Walker at first base help cover up some of Altuve's limitations? Or am I like overthinking that part of it?
I mean, Altuve's limitations are range to his right and left. That's the issue. The balls that he can get to, he'll make plays on. It's just the balls that he gets to are going to be less and less. And this is not new for Jose Altuve. He is now, older than he has ever been. But part of the reason that AJ Hinch and Lunau and that front office came up with the shift strategy was because Jose Altuve is going to play second base every day, and he's not a good defensive second baseman.
Yes.
Regardless of the fact that he won a Gold Glove, I don't care.
When you limit options,
yeah. Missed me with all of that. But that was a strategy to mask Altuve's deficiencies and put the team in a position where he could be the bat on the field and not kill them on the infield. That's not gotten better with age. He's gotten worse. We've all seen it. However, second base, it's minimally impacted. I think having part of the reason the Astros were able to stay in the race last year as long as they did with all the injuries was the fact that Dana Brown put a lot of emphasis on improving the infield defense. You knew you had Framber Valdez taking a start every 5 days. You had another couple of ground ball pitchers who were heavy lean towards ground balls. And so having a better defensive second baseman to go along with Jeremy Pena and Christian Walker was paramount. I don't know with the pitchers that we have coming, I don't know enough about the guy from Japan. I don't know enough about Burrows. I know I think leans more towards ground balls. Hunter Brown is not a ground ball pitcher. So I don't know that the infield mix needs to be what it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
That remains to be seen because we've got a lot of new pitchers that we're all trying to figure out what they're going to be in an Astros uniform after the pitching lab convinces them to stop doing the stupid shit they were doing wherever else they were last year. Walker's a necessary piece of that, though, because a good first baseman will make your third baseman look better. It will make your shortstop look better. It will make your second baseman look better.
We saw that with Abreu when you don't have a good first baseman.
Yeah, it bungles things up. You talk about why you're willing to put a bad defender out in left field because they don't touch the ball all that much. First base is the opposite of that. First base touches the ball constantly. And so you need somebody who is good of glove over there. And Walker fills that role. I don't want to see Paredes a dealt. I just don't think there's a place for him. And I think there are enough holes in this roster to justify moving somebody to fill that roster and make it work better. The issue for Walker, and I feel bad for him because he was a free agent last year. He chose to play in Houston. It was not his fault Paredes ripped his hamstring off his leg. And it is not his fault that Dana Brown's answer was to bring back Carlos Correa at his salary. So that set some dominoes in motion, and Dana Brown, to this point, has been unable to deal with it by moving one guy or the other. I also tend to believe, based on what we've seen the last couple of years, that the likelihood of Correa being hurt for some period of time, for Altuve being hurt for some period of time, hopefully not Jeremy Pena, but maybe being hurt for some period of time, is going to leave a lot of playing time on that infield. I don't trust that this roster as constructed is a healthy roster. They're getting older. You don't typically get healthier as you get older. To that point, Christian Walker has had a history of injury problems as well with his abdominals, whatever this is. Something. Yeah, but he's had lat strains and I don't know, they're muscles. I don't have any, so I don't know what they're called.
Yeah. Well, I guess you are.
Yeah, I think Walker serves a purpose, and I think Paredes would serve a purpose as well, but Paredes might have a greater value to the team in the form of a AAA guy that's ready to be in the major leagues and one major league ready player. Preferably left-handed bat.
It does seem like if you're going to roll in with both of them, then the way to do it is to actually give Paredes plenty of playing time at both first and third base, keep Correa off his feet a little bit. I mean, really try to manage the workload. That way you also keep everybody in rhythm. I mean, that's the thing. It's just weird because you can't really call Paredes a super utility player because he can really only play the corners. I I mean, I know that there has been Astros Twitter talking about him at second base, and part of me thinks if it wasn't for his hamstring, part of me would think it would be a worthwhile experiment. Because, as you said, it's not exactly a premium defensive position in the first place, but I don't know how much range he has because of the fact that he has got hamstring, and I don't know how healthy he's going to be just even to start the season. It's all very weird, and it's made worse by the fact that the Astros are taking their usual approach to all this stuff by having a gross lack of transparency. But are you worried about the clubhouse part of it?
Not from those two players. I think Christian Walker is a professional. If you read the Chandler Rome article in The Athletic this morning,
which he pointed out, he did not write the headline. And that we all know, everybody should know, writers do not write the headline. So the headline was, as often happens, way more extreme than the actual meat of the article was.
Yep. Well, yeah, because click. I got to click that. It's drama. I don't think Christian Walker is going to cause a problem. I don't think Isaac Paredes would necessarily want to cause a problem, but I think that they are competitors. They are athletes of a certain level. They're veterans, so they have an expectation of playing every day. And so my worry from a clubhouse issue is that Joe Espada has been playing with fire with the clubhouse for 2 seasons now. I don't know that he is equipped to manage the drama of a guy being upset because they haven't played in 3 days and they're a starter.
What about when it comes to the clubhouse? What about the fact that at some point, time is undefeated, and I feel like Correa has a really good head on his shoulders to understand where the Astros are in the process of whatever this run is, and whether this run has ended last year or keeps going. How much of it, because Dana Brown has failed to address some of the other holes in the team, how much does that start to wear on guys and start to affect the clubhouse, or does it at all?
Oh, I think it absolutely does. I think there is a legacy that you're trying to build up to. And for most of those players, you just disappear one day. And if you're Correa and you're Altuve, and Correa's in a kind of a special situation because he left for a couple of years and came back, but you're looking at the closing of a window. I hate to use that term, but you're looking at the one end of the window when you were on the other end of the window. And so there's a certain amount of wanting to fight against that happening, but there's also the realization that it's going to happen anyway. And what can be disheartening, if you want to be that franchise that, whatever Jim Crane's model was 10 years ago, 11 years ago, we have not continued to replenish the roster with young players who can take spots. You can argue that we've held on to some guys too long. You can argue that we've ignored the realities of free agency and hoped on a wing and a prayer that we were going to re-sign Alex Bregman, that hoped that we were going to somehow convince George Springer that he didn't hate Jeff Luhnow. And that didn't happen. And so you lucked into Kyle Tucker through development and through a good draft pick. And then, outside of Jeremy Pena, I still struggle to come up with a single major league everyday player that the Astros have developed since Kyle Tucker. And Jeremy Pena is the answer to that. But then beyond that, it gets really sparse. And that's the problem from the organization. If you're going to manage the salary cap, the luxury tax, if you're going to manage keeping certain veterans, that means you have to be constantly vigilant, like the Braves did in the 90s, of being willing to let David Justice go because you knew you had somebody in the minors, or you knew you could acquire somebody that would produce roughly the same numbers as the superstar you're willing to let walk or you're willing to trade. And the Astros stopped being aggressive in that respect. And I think losing Luhnow, I have often said this, losing Hinch for a year or, for the rest of the time, but losing Hinch was bad. Losing Luhnow, losing the GM was going to be worse over the long term. James Click was not a long-term solution for Jim Crane for a number of reasons that we've talked about. I don't know that Dana Brown's a long-term solution. The fact that he's in his walk year as the GM right before a labor stoppage probably doesn't bode well for his future unless they make an incredible – I say they could win the World Series. You could look at James Click and say that doesn't make him safe.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think that's part of the negative feeling I have about the Astros this year is not necessarily even the on-field product. It's that the future doesn't look great. right now.
Yeah. I guess that's where Dana Brown's role will come into the forefront, right? Because his whole job was to rebuild the farm system through the draft. And I don't know that there's anybody that he's drafted that we can look to and say 2 years from now, there's our George Springer. Or I don't know that we have that guy right now. I mean, and I know the draft ranking, the farm system rankings are dubious at best, but we're continuously ranked in the bottom 3.
Yeah, and I know there's some guys they're high on. I know they're high on Ethan Frey, who they got last year in the 3rd round. They're high on Joseph Sullivan, which is a name from the 1920s. Joe Sullivan. It's got a comment.
Right hand up, Southpaw, Joe Sullivan.
But I don't know that anybody's just salivating over those guys to say, "Oh, this is the future of the franchise," outside of Dana Brown's office, and that's, there's a little bit of a problem with that. Our fan base notwithstanding, because we'll fall in love with anybody who gets called up and put in an Astros uniform for a day. Joey Loperfido.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
see, you had to think about who that was.
I mean, he was the kid who, I mean, but that is part of the problem. It seems like what the Astros should have been doing as they kind of patch things up was looking for mid-tier free agents to keep this thing going, because I don't think you can rebuild a farm system and still win at the same time.
The best of the best could do that, maybe. I don't know that we're the best of the best. I don't know we have the best of the best front office. Dana Brown, however qualified he may have been to take the job, was still learning on the job when he took it. He had never been a general manager before. That, to me, was a concern.
And we said that at the beginning, that this franchise is no longer an on-the-job training franchise.
But we have an on-the-job training manager on the field. We have an on-the-job training general manager in the front office. And I honestly don't think 3 years in you have any idea of how good or bad either of them are. I have more worries now than I did when they got the jobs, but they could have a good year this year and turn it around. So, it's kind of like the Mike Early situation at Texas A&M. I think he's going to be a really great coach somewhere at some point. I don't know that he's going to get enough time at A&M to prove it that it's going to be there.
Well, I mean, college baseball does start this weekend,
which is why I brought it up, because the Astros are depressing.
Yeah, the Astros are depressing. What are your what does a successful season look like for A&M? What are your expectations?
Well, we open up today with 3 at Tennessee Tech, or with Tennessee Tech at Ballpark. I'm excited for baseball to start again. It won't be frigid, which it usually is for this first series of the season, so that's nice. I think a successful season for early, minimum, you have to make a regional, because he didn't do that last year. Hopefully you're in a position to host at some point. Not necessarily a top 8 seed, but one of the 16 or 32, 16, and be in the upper half of the SEC standings. The SEC again is loaded this year. A&M opens the season ranked 20.
3 of the top 4 teams are ranked in the top 3 of the top 4 teams in the rankings right now are SEC teams. 5 of the top 10 are SEC teams.
And A&M opened up at least in one of the rankings at 25th. I think that's aggressive, but the talent should be there. They've got some questions at pitching and like everybody else, they've got a few holes. I won't say everybody else, because Texas is evidently loaded with its first loss in Eagle this year. But if you could get 500 in the SEC, that's a successful season. That puts you square in the place where you can achieve anything you want to achieve this year. That, to me, is the target to determine whether or not Early gets a 3rd year, frankly.
Yeah. And I think so, but you really think, okay, so you really think that this could be his last, you really think he's coaching for his job?
Yes.
Wow.
There were overtures. I don't think I'm telling secrets. I don't know what websites I look at. There were overtures towards a number of established coaches prior to hiring Early. There were a number of coaches that were approached after this – past season ended with A&M not making the postseason. They decided to stick with early, but I don't know that they decided because that was the best choice, or they decided because that was the answer they got from the other people they talked to.
Well, it's mystifying to me because much like in football, you would think A&M has all the resources and tools in the world to compete at the highest level, and so I don't blame them for expecting a coach to be able to deliver on those promises. I just would have thought maybe you give the guy 3 years to start, but
I mean, that's what his contract says, but I don't think that there are a couple of financial things happening at A&M, not that jeopardize money, but they want to expand the stadium. You want to expand the stadium, you've got to get donors excited. You want to get donors excited, you better be in Omaha every other year at least. The Aggies didn't do that last year, so they fell back. And so some of that money starts going, well, I don't know. I want to see what's going to happen. So the push for that is driving some things as well. They are opening up a new player development center, which A&M has lagged from a facility standpoint in that respect for a while. So that will help with some of this. But the names they were talking to, or a couple of names I'm aware of that they were talking to this offseason, were big names. They were big, I'm not going to say the guy who is currently the manager of the Giants, but that level.
Okay.
That was the year before that they were in heavy conversation with Vitello. Anyway, I think it's a put up or shut up year for Early. And I hope he makes it because he seems like a decent enough guy. And
yeah, he really does.
Coach, but I think he was very much in over his head last year. His first year being the head guy, and the amount of injuries he had to deal with, it wasn't great. But we'll see what we see. It should be better than this year, provided they can stay healthy. The talent will win out a lot of those things. And plus, we don't play anybody until February 27th. I don't even think Virginia Tech is any good. Maybe Arizona State on March 1st in the Globe Life Field, the Flow College tournament. I don't know what this tournament. AMG Bank College Baseball Series.
Yeah.
Because evidently y'all are playing in the Bolts Baseball Classic, which used to be something else at Minute Maid, but now it's the Bolt Baseball Classic.
I love how they make a point of flipping our two schools so we're never in the same tournament, the same.
Well, I mean, that's on purpose.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It'd be kind of fun, but.
Yeah, but I didn't know that, I didn't think Bolt did that well for Disney. I didn't realize they made enough money to be sponsoring baseball tournaments in the spring.
See, at first I thought it was Volt, and I thought, wow, the new professional Austin softball team is going to sponsor. But all right.
They're trying to make a cola comeback.
We need all three of them to co-sponsor. It's funny because like Longhorn baseball, I feel like I'm going to be saying the exact same thing I'm going to say in August when we have a conversation, and probably more so it'll be applicable in August, but it's championship or bust. It feels like for me and I think last year was a disappointment. I mean, on the one hand, yes, you won the SEC, and I don't care what anybody says. I know that you agree. The regular season championship is what matters. The tournament is a crapshoot. But
yes.
But what you and I did not see happening last year was that tournament appearance in the SEC being a bellwether for what was going to happen, which was a team that was completely out of gas and completely out of depth. The Longhorns have rebuilt a lot of that depth, and I don't know. I mean, I really feel like Schloss needs a deep run. I will tell you something I'm very disappointed about is, it's funny because like you go to Bluebell Park, and to me, and I know you said they're refurbishing, but to me, that's a ballpark, right? Mm-hmm. I have never been a fan of the Dish, and I think it does not serve a unit that has such the history that Texas has. And I'm looking at these plans to refurbish it, and it reminds me of this old cartoon that appeared in the Daily Texan. In 2005, they refurbished Dish Falk Field and DKR at the same time, and the cartoon showed Max showing up in a limo, and then the other half of the cartoon was Augie trying to raise money between innings to try to finish the refurbish, Yep. And I'm looking at what the plans are, and there is no plan to put grass in. And it's like they're going to take 18 months to just essentially keep it up to date. When I really think what needs to happen is it needs to be blown up and started over.
And I don't mean to be. There's a lot of history at Dish Falk. You've had great teams go through there. This is not a reflection on the program or my feelings on it, but Dish Falk as a stadium to me has always felt like an overgrown municipal stadium.
Totally.
It is.
It's completely lacking in any character.
It's sterile, and when I think of it, the immediate word that comes to mind is aluminum.
Yeah.
From the bleachers to the railings to the fencing it's aluminum.
Yeah. And for as much as they've changed the edifice when you walk in to make it feel a little bit more grand with the kind of hall of, I guess our version of Monument Park walking in. Yeah, you get in there. It's not a fun ballpark to sit in. It's not an overly comfortable ballpark to sit in.
And you and I have traveled to a number of ballparks, both separately and together. I will tell you that the Citadel, who shares the Joe with the Charleston River Dogs in Charleston, South Carolina, is a better baseball park than Dish Falk.
Yeah.
It doesn't seat more, but it feels like a ballpark. It feels like you could get a hot dog and watch a game and enjoy it. And I've watched some shitty baseball in minor league parks, but I can enjoy the park. I have trouble doing that at Dish Falk.
I mean, we do too. Like it's Jess and I do too. I think we're gonna try to go this week to a game, or this weekend. But yeah, we have a very similar tough time going, and I wish, because there had been rumors bandied around that they were just going to basically bust the Longhorns to the Dell for a season and really do something. And maybe that'll eventually happen. Like, they did just rebuild the basketball arena. So, I mean, these things do take time, but I would like to see something.
Your university and your state government are at a crossroads about what's happening on I-35. So I think that's delayed some things as well, because I know that the University of Texas had big plans for what was going to go on top of I-35, which is evidently not happening now.
Which was a dumb idea from the beginning.
Sure. They did it in Boston.
There's a reason why we don't have subways in Texas.
Limestone?
Well, down in your area, flooding, and our area.
Yeah. Well, that whole water table thing.
Yeah. It's either rocks in hard places. It's a rock in a wet place is what it is. So
I still remember when we bought a house in Round Rock and I wanted to plant a tree in the front yard and had to have a demolitions expert dig a hole. What you got here is about 10 feet of limestone. You can't get through that with a shovel. Shit. That's why I'm talking to you.
Imagine the Army Corps of Engineers out there with the explosive going, I don't know, blow it up.
Yeah. Well, live next to a quarry out on 1431, and that's what you get.
That's what you get. Well, before we roll, I did want to do a real quick shout out, though. Actually, before we roll, I'll do my shout out later. But first, preview the Aggie softball team. That's got to feel like that's going to be a very good team again this year.
They're up to number 8 in the rankings. It should be what is kind of a little bit of a rebuilding year from a pitching standpoint, but took Texas Tech to the wire and ended up losing 3-1, which is, depending on which ranking systems you look at, either the number 1 or number 2 team. That team should expect a deep run in the NCAAs, and I would expect that they are playing, at least the Final Four at the end of the day, at the end of the season. But again, the SEC for round ball sports seems to be stacked this spring. There are no easy weekends. Texas is going to face the same thing, and both squads should be really, really competitive. I'm glad to see that from a women's sports perspective that A&M has taken what I think is, I hate to sound entitled, but what should be the rightful place in volleyball and softball. And, at some point we're going to hire a real bouncy ball coach and maybe we'll be competitive in that again.
Yeah. Depending on the ranking, Texas is either 1 or 2 in the country. But it's kind of cool because, like you said, 5 of the top 10 teams in the softball rankings are SEC teams. But to all of a sudden look at the 3 teams in the top 10 are from Texas. Yep. There's a certain state pride thing that goes with that. Like, I mean, you and I are both girl dads, so we understand girl sports matter as much as the boy sports do. And
well, as much as I don't like Cody Campbell, I'm not mad at the fact that he just goes out and hires the best softball player in the world and sticks him on the Texas Tech roster.
I'm not mad when Reese Atwood hits a base it up the middle to win the national championship too. And that leads me to my shout out to the aforementioned Reese Atwood, who I did get to meet, of all places, Andy, on the field at Toledo, Ohio. 2 weeks after the national championship, she was doing a camp for girls in Toledo, Ohio, and I ended up being there. But she just became the all-time leader for the Longhorns in home runs. So between that and the aforementioned Kat Osterman managing the Volt for the professional softball league, it's a pretty good time to be a Texas softball player. Andy, any final thoughts?
I have so few thoughts. No, I'm good. Have a happy Valentine's Day, folks.
Valentine's Day is a farce. Enjoy it. All righty then. For Andy, I'm Jim. We are, as soon as I find the right clip, out of here.
Turn out the light.